Good morning, my lovies. Welcome back to Crazy But Not Dangerous. I'm Shorty Vaughn, and it's another Tales from the Step Stool, Volume 17. Hot diggity, we are on a roll. Anyhow, I was thinking about telling stories about my mother and what she would think about YouTube. Well, I think that she would love YouTube, and she would love that I finally found a platform where I can just get on and have a good time and hopefully entertain people. Anyhow, my mother, what she would think about me telling her stories, she would love them, but she would say, Tanya, you're doing me a disservice by not telling them, the whole story. Tell them the whole story because it's interesting. Anyhow, it is interesting because my mother was a very dynamic individual. Very determined, very driven, and an extremely hard worker, an excellent mother to her children, an excellent wife to her husband. So my parents got married under very unusual circumstances. They had only known each other for a few hours when my mother got arrested for stealing $10 to buy a pair of shoes. Anyhow, I'll link that video up here. So over here, up here somewhere, so you can, if you don't know that story, you can go ahead and catch up. My mother was born in rural, unincorporated Virginia, at home, in a shack, and they were very, very poor. They were dirt poor floor, that's what she would tell you. They were so poor that when my mother went to school with no shoes on, she would bring home the milk from her free lunch for her youngest brother, my Uncle Gary, because he was a baby and he needed the milk, in her opinion, more than she did for her own nutrition. And the pictures I have of my mother as a young girl, very thin, usually with clothes that looked at least 2 sizes too small, no shoes, and very poor, humble beginnings. But my mother was a woman who was determined. She knew in her heart that she was, made for something special, that there was something in her that was different from everybody else. And she just guessed that she was going to get where she wanted to go, no matter what, and very determined. My father was in the Air Force. He was medically discharged, and he had a significant injury that limited his ability to work and provide for his family. And this scared my mother half to death. So they were living in Tennessee, in Kingsport, Tennessee, and my father was not doing well. And he went to the doctor. The doctor said that you really need to be living somewhere at a drier climate, and maybe that you will do better. So my mother, with her 5 small children, and my father, they had $300 and a beat-up station wagon, and they drove across country, no friends, no family. They didn't know anyone. $300 in their pocket and a beat-up station wagon. They had to pull over and add water and oil to this station wagon to get across the country. So yeah, precarious circumstances. A husband that can't work, who's on disability, 5 kids, and my mother would tell you out of her own mouth she was just running scared. Yeah, and anyhow, they got to Arizona. They found a place to live. My mother found a job at Arnold's Pickle Factory. My dad watched kids. My mother worked, and then when she came home, she would watch kids, and she also took in ironing from all the women that she could in the neighborhood. So she would get home from her job, feed the family, yada, 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 do all the things that a working mother had to do back then. But it was uncommon to have a working mother. So yeah, she was a feminist, and she didn't even know it. Just doing what she had to do. So after that, after she would put the kids to bed, she would iron until midnight to earn extra money to keep one step ahead. I just had to keep one step ahead, Tanya, because otherwise we were going to drown. My father tried working on and off, but really due to his injury, completely unable to. He was so ill that he could not carry change in his pocket because it was just too heavy. He couldn't walk with change in his pocket. My mother saved as much money as she possibly could, and she realized that renting was going to kill her, and that she had 5 little girls to, support: Sandy, Patty, Sherry, Linda, and Glinda. So she called a real estate agent. She had a little bit of money saved, $250 saved. Called a real estate agent and said, I have $250 and I need to buy a house. The real estate agent said, well, I don't have a house for $250. I don't think you're going to qualify for the loan. But I have a property. I have a property in Cave Creek, Arizona. It's very remote. It is no water, no electricity, no telephone. It's just acreage. My mother said, and it's $250. She said, yes, take me out to see it. So her and my father went to the real estate agent. They loaded up in the car with the 5 kids. They went out to this remote desert area, Cave Creek, Arizona. And the real estate agent said it's got plenty of coyotes, scorpions, rattlesnakes, tarantulas, and Gila monsters. And my mother looked around, and it was big saguaros and desert scrub and creosote and Palo Verde trees, wide open spaces surrounded by these big, beautiful mountains. And my mother said, yeah, this is it. She had a vision. And she would tell people, I had a vision that my life out here, could be something special. This was an opportunity I could not pass up. So they bought 5 acres with $250, and they bought a trailer with a water tank on the back to hook to the station wagon. They bought a large tent, and they moved to Cave Creek, Arizona. My mother continued to transport to work every day. They hauled water in on this trailer all the way from Bell Road and Cave Creek Road, which was about 6.5 miles from where our house was, on a dirt road. So they drove 6.5 miles on a dirt road with a water tank strapped to the back of the station wagon so that they would have water for the week, for drinking, for baths, cooking, that kind of thing. My mother cooked on a Coleman stove because there was no electricity. Well, as my mother worked, they would do things. So when they had enough money together, they had the footers and the foundation built for the house. Then my mother got some more money together, but not enough to hire a contractor. So she decided that her and her 5 children were going to go ahead and learn how to lay brick. So they got some books, and they learned how to lay brick and put up basically the house. Waited a little while longer, and then they had money for the trusses and a roof. And then they were thrilled because they were out of the tent. Even though the inside of the house was not finished, just basically brick and a roof, no windows, no doors yet, but they were undercover and they were thrilled. My mother's still cooking on the Coleman stove. They got plumbing. They got set up for electricity, because as they were building over, a few years span, other people started to buy lots in, what became our neighborhood. So my mother knew it was just a matter of time before city services would be coming in. The neighborhood never got incorporated into a city, but we did finally get water, despite mere drink water. Yeah, it was funny. That was the thing. We couldn't get water from city of Scottsdale, even though it was really close to us, because there was a problem with mere drink water, and that was when they would protest mere drink water. How about a drink for us? So we finally got electricity. We got a party line telephone. My mother thought we were in Lackland because we got party line telephone, windows and doors. It was a few more years later before we got carpeting. Then I'm born. Then, Melissa and Jackie and Mark and 9 of us. And it was a nice, big, beautiful house that my mother built, and she put up all of the sheetrock and all of the finishing and what have you. The carpet was installed. They did pay for that. But yeah, my mother knew if she could get a paid-for house, that all she had to worry about was the property tax and the homeowner's insurance, that her children would always have a safe and secure place to live, no matter what happened with my father. Because, yeah, that he was so sick. My mother didn't know that he would live. When he was medically discharged, he was only given 2 more years to live. That's how much time they thought he had left. So, yeah, she's building this house so her children are safe and secure. She's still working over at the pickle factory. Then she changes jobs to Sperry Rand, and she's making airplane parts. And that's closer to Cave Creek. And she's working there, and she's building this house, and she's raising kids, and she's having some more, and the whole thing. And she's tired. She's so tired of people underestimating her, undervaluing her. She was 5 foot nothing, and she didn't think that she got a fair shake, that she was not the master of her own destiny so long as she is working for someone else. So she quit her job. She quit her job and decided that she was going to take a chance on herself. So she had about $500 saved up. And she told my father that she was going to open an antique store because she liked antiques and she thought that that was something that she could do. My father thinks that she's crazy. You're nuts. And she said, well, you just watch and see what happens. So some of my older sisters have now married and moved out of the house, and some of the younger ones have been born. My mother decides, this is it. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. So she rents a U-Haul truck. She drives it to Houston, Texas, because that's where all of the good imported European furniture is coming in, and she loves European antiques. And she drives to Houston, Texas. She goes to the auction houses and she bids on furniture, and she has everything loaded up into this U-Haul. Her and my sister Patty went. And then they drove home and unloaded all of this furniture into our basement recreation room. Well, part of it. Flies. They're driving me crazy. I don't even know where they came from. So yeah, they've unloaded this furniture into our recreation room, basement area, and my father's still incredulous. What are you doing? What did you do with our $500 in savings? I'm investing in myself. So she puts an ad in the paper and lists our phone number, antique furniture for sale, and our phone starts to ring off the hook. People are scheduling appointments to come out and look at, and my mother's making money at her business right off the bat. They're doing really well. And so she takes that money and she's got her markups and what have you. She knows what she paid for it, what she can get out of it. And pretty soon they're making monthly trips to Houston to re-up on their inventory. And my father's doing what he can to help out and still raising kids and what have you. Anyhow, my mother had a very successful antique shop, and my father helped out in it as much as he could. There was a time that came where my father was no longer able to help out. His health deteriorated quite a bit. And I was a young girl living at home, and Melissa and Mark and Jackie, my older sisters, had pretty much all moved out at this point to start their own lives, married, children, all of those things. So my mother decides that she needs something that's not quite so demanding on my father. So she stops selling antique furniture, liquidates her inventory, takes that money, and decides that she's going to start a cleaning business, because my sisters also need employment. And she wants them to have a leg up. She wants them to be part of their own business. Uh, so in Cave Creek, really, you can, at the time, you could divide the town in two. You had the ranchers, that was us, and then you have the mega extra wealthy rich people. So my mother decides that she's going to start a cleaning business, and she's well known in town, has a good reputation for being honest, decent, hard-working woman, and, you know, with her girls and everything like that. So it's no problem for her to get jobs. But she decides that she's going to be very exclusive in her business, that this is her business strategy. So she would go and somebody would call her and ask her, can you clean for me? Well, I don't know, we'll see. I'll come interview you. So that was her strategy. She would interview you to see if she wanted to take you on as a client, not the other way around. And the strategy worked really well. She had more clients than you can shake a stick at. And so my sisters all had employment. They all had different jobs with different people. Anything from house cleaning to estate management. They could, all those things. And so that was the business. At the same time, my mother's still taking in ironing, except now she's ironing for the rich and famous and ironing their very expensive sheet sets, because she found out how much our local dry cleaner would charge for their sheet sets. And they're sending them out every week, because when you have expensive linens, you want them to be perfect. You know, when you're spending $2,000 or $3,000 on Irish linen, people are crazy. They spend money on all kinds of things. They're not just going down to the J.C. Penney's to get themselves a sheet set like we do. Anyhow, my mother was ironing till midnight, ironing their sheets and beating the price from the local dry cleaner. Excellent business strategy. She never stopped ironing. She taught me to iron because she said, Tanya, if you can iron, then you will always, always have a job. She's not wrong. You can work at a dry cleaners. You can take in ironing. You know, there's always something if you can iron. That's what she said. Thank goodness that in my lifetime I have never had to do that, but I'm a pretty darn good ironer, thank goodness. And I don't iron my sheet sets, only the pillowcases, because I'm not totally nuts. Anyhow, my mother, hard worker, determined, 2 excellent businesses, 9 kids, and she would tell you that one of her greatest successes in life is that she never went hungry, that her children always had 3 square meals a day, that they always had shoes on their feet, that they had every opportunity for a good education, that she tried to set them on the right path and always be a good influence for them, and an influence that you have to believe in yourself, that you have to bank on yourself, invest in yourself, and to keep going, because your circumstances can change in a New York minute. You can go from, having a life and thinking that you're going down the rosy path, and something happens. How many paychecks are any of us away from complete financial disaster or having a health emergency? And even if you have finances, maybe you're not solving that health emergency like my dad. My dad was only given a couple of years to live after his injury, and he ended up living for 29 years. My mother kept him alive by sheer will, I'm telling you. And also the help of his daughters, because we doted on him. Can we get you a cup of coffee? And we did take good care of my dad. My mom was a very determined woman, a very wonderful mother, and an excellent role model. An excellent role model. She was a feminist and she didn't know it. She would tell you, I'm not a feminist, but honestly, she was. She was a feminist, an entrepreneur, and a lot of things. When she died, The mortuary was absolutely packed, not only with family and family from out of town, but friends and clients and people in the community that knew her. And it was the largest funeral procession from the mortuary to the cemetery that I have ever seen. We clogged the streets. Yeah, it took an hour and 15 minutes for our procession to go from the mortuary to the cemetery, and it was only like 4 miles because there were so many of us in the procession. And it was a beautifully wonderful attended funeral, unlike anything I have really ever seen. And she would have loved that. She died on her birthday, and I think that she would really love that, because she would say that that seems very rare and unusual to her. And anyhow, I'm just, I've just been thinking about my mom a lot this week. And the thing is that my 5 older sisters, only 2 of them remain, and then I'm next in line. There's not that, Melissa and Jackie, they don't remember the stories. They were just too little, and they don't remember the stories. And I've got nieces and nephews, and great nieces and nephews now. And anyhow, I just wanted to come on here, tell you a little bit about my mom, little Georgie Vaughn. She was a spitfire. She was full of, the Dickens, and don't get in her way, and don't underestimate her, and don't undervalue her. And if you think she's crazy today, she'll prove you that she's not tomorrow. And that was my mom. All right, my lovelies. Well, I gotta go get the laundry started. I'm gonna go turn on the sprinklers in the front yard. This is my good time. This is when I'm feeling the best in the day. So I thought I'd come on for a little Tales from the Step Stool, a little chit chat. I hope you have a wonderful day. Sending y'all great big old kisses and big squeezy hugs. And you have a great day. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching Crazy But Not Dangerous. Be good, be careful, and look both ways.